Yay! Welcome to the Noonchi podcast. It is our 100th episode.
Oh my gosh.
And for our 100th episode, we invited a very, very special guest. He is an OG of the Asian American entertainment community. He is the reason why we made K-Town Cowboys the movie.
That's not true.
I wanted to leave it alone, but then people were like, yo, this person said we need to make the movie. And I was like, all right, let's fucking make the movie. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Daniel Dae Kim is in the house.
Yeah. It's actually just us in the room.
Hand applause and everything. You guys are pros.
So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is, our 100th show, and we were thinking maybe we should have a guest for the 100th show. And it just happened that you would be in Korea, and we were just like, oh.
Are you kidding? I flew all the way to Korea just to be here for the 100th show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I heard all about it.
He did the
big news.
He did the same thing for the movie. He just flew by himself.
That's true. Yeah.
That is true. But yeah, I'm honored to be here. You guys, we go back a long way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
I love what you're doing here. I love the idea of the podcast and how you're trying to grow podcasting in Korea. I think it's great.
Actually, we met up. I mean, you were in town for a little bit, but then we met up this past weekend because you brought some people to check out my 1 hour stand-up comedy set. And you said you understood about 70% of it.
Yeah. No, first of all, man, I was so impressed. I think I told you this the other night, but genuinely, like you're making a market here in Korea. Stand-up is not that big a thing here. And the fact that you're doing it at such a high level here and doing it in a language that you're not as comfortable in as English, that's freaking huge. And to see, because I saw your stuff in LA and I've seen not only the language skills grow, but the comedy skills grow. And that's pretty significant. And talking about OGs, man, you are going to be looked at as the OG of stand-up in Korea.
Wow. I mean, I am still the OG because, the hyung 동생 thing is very serious here in Korea. And I am the hyung of all the comedians.
The oldest of it?
Yeah.
And thankfully you didn't bomb on Saturday, which was what I was hoping for.
Oh, he did mention that. He said he really wanted you to bomb.
But it's really hard to see that in Korea. I mean, unless there's like a really conservative crowd, which I thought was going to happen. Because I don't know if you guys felt it, but the first two openers were kind of shitting the bed, and I went, ooh.
Yeah.
It just took a little while.
Yeah,
it took a little while.
Yeah.
I feel like people needed to get a rhythm and understand. And also it just speaks to the level of sophistication you have in your stuff. And there's years of experience there, and comedy requires. And what little I know of comedy, you don't get better not doing it. What I mean? You got to be out there every night, honing material and stuff. And so it's 10,000 hours, man.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized my Korean got a lot better because every now and then Daniel would lean over and say, "Hey, what does that mean?" And I was like, "Oh, that means Konsan is like psoriasis." I was like, I normally would not know what
Yeah, right?
Like, oh, psoriasis.
I have to tell you, I expanded my vocabulary significknow because of your show, but not in the ways that my parents would approve of.
But to your credit, like he didn't know any of the bad words.
Right.
Like there was one point you were talking about chawi.
Yeah.
And then I just went over and I said, that means
masturbation.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I think I know a little too much.
No, but all of the Korean that I spoke as a kid was in my house with my parents.
Right.
So masturbation, porn, anal sex.
You learned that too.
None of that is coming up in my conversation with my parents. So I was, I was actually happy that I was able to understand so much of it. But then when you would talk about that, I would have to get it from the context.
Yeah.
And then thankfully Bobby was there to kind of fill in the blanks.
I had a little bit of trouble with Hwangmun. Was it
Hangmun? Yes.
Hangmun, right? And at first I was like, wait, That's got to mean backdoor.
But it literally means back door. So I mean, I guess it's nice of Koreans to put it in such a kind of like delicate way.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, very euphemistic.
It's not like
Not everyone goes in there, but only the special people go through the back door.
But you know, like with Koreans and like you can eat chicken intestine or chicken colon.
Yeah.
And there's no delicate word for that. It's literally chicken shit house.
Yeah.
You know,
닭똥집, yes.
So I was thinking maybe Koreans would have a word like that for anal sex, but you know, it's very delicate. Backdoor.
Nice.
You know, it almost
nice.
flows.
I mean, so you were. I know that you were born in Korea, but you moved when you were super young, right? So in the household, first of all, I'm sure your parents when they speak in a 사투리 to you?
They do, yeah. So I grew up hearing that 사투리 and thinking that was Korean. So you know, even now, like I was talking with a friend who actually, he became a friend. But when I met him, I just heard that he was from Busan.
Yeah.
We actually end up knowing some people in common. But he's from an area where I grew up in Busan. So as soon as I heard him speak, I felt like he was family because I never hear that accent up here, and so it just really made my heart warm. And but I realized, you know, being in Seoul, I don't hear it very often. It makes me feel even a half step further removed from being Korean. But when I go back to Busan, it's very different.
So
They
I
call
mean,
you Hengnim. Hengnim.
Yeah,
That's
like
right.
the Busan 사투리, like it takes me maybe 5 minutes. Like if I'm in Busan, it takes me about 5 minutes to get adjusted to what the hell everyone's saying. Because like I remember the first time I went, he was like 가가, and I was like,
What's that?
it means like, is that person the person
Is that person, yeah.
the person you're talking about? Like you know, but I was like ka de.
Ka.
I was like, man, there was only one syllable that this person used like 4 times, and it meant the whole sentence. You know what I mean? So it takes some time to do it. But
Korea's got a lot of those perfect words for like that. In English, they don't have like a perfect word for like hangmun is like, right? But like there's like even Noonchi.
Yeah, Noonchi's that's a big one.
You can't really define it in English. It's like the closest we've come to is like able to read a room well.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly like common sense. But it's like one of those really nice words that kind of explains a lot.
Yeah, no, Noonchi's a big one, and that's the name of your podcast,
Yes,
right? So
yes.
you know, 고수해 is another one. Like,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
you don't really have that.
like, yeah, it's not nutty. It's not like
I mean, that's the closest
Hearty,
you can come to
you know?
like nutty,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not exactly that. So
Yeah, no, like ga in Busan is like 그 친구 아이가,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
it's
That's
아니니까.
Yeah.
그 친구 아니니까 압니까? You know, it's,
Right.
That just gets translated to ga.
when you were on Lost, was your accent a Busan accent?
So I couldn't help but have a little bit of a
Yeah.
Busan accent. And then it was mixed with an American accent, of course, which was, you know, the subject of a lot of ridicule and criticism. But I tried actually to get rid of my Busan accent, and that made it difficult for
Okay.
me. One step more difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, but then later in the series, the creators decided to say he was from the South, and so
Oh, really?
you know, so I could relax a little bit.
Okay.
But there are certain words that, you know, Yunjin would hear, and she would be like, "I don't think you should use that word because I think that's satori." And I'd
Oh,
be
right,
like-
okay.
And or she would say,
yeah.
"That's not a word." I was like, "Actually, it's a word," but she'd never heard the word
Right.
because it was only, you know, from satori.
it might also be from 사투리, and also kind of back in the day, like there's something called 서울 사투리, which is words that were used back in the days that they don't use anymore in Seoul, you know? So, I mean, a lot of words have kind of disappeared in use. Even
Yeah, I
in
mean,
Korean.
we learned this moving here. Like when I first came here, like everyone uses the words like we used to say tamanegi and like takwang.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
no one says takwang anymore?
They-
See, this is
yeah,
news to me.
Kids don't know what that is.
Because it's all Japanese origin, those words. So they want to use Korean words. So it's not takwang anymore. It's tanmuji.
단무지. See, I learned something more today. Thank you, Danny Cho. You're my 선생님. Or I like to say my 생선님. I used to tease my Korean teacher by always calling her 생선님, which means Sir Fish.
Professor Fish.
Professor Fish.
We asked you this before we started recording, but like we weren't sure if you knew that you were beloved in Korea for not just for being like a famous actor, but also because of Lost and your accent on Lost, your Korean accent. So you became like famous through meme form. Like before, there was a thing called memes.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's famous or infamous. You know,
Yeah.
and I think I'll try and take it all as a compliment. But I don't know if I'm beloved. That I actually have no idea about. But what I do know is that someone showed me this video, I guess like 6 months ago, and it was a video that was shot. It wasn't even part of the show. It was a little kind of interstitial thing that was shot for mobile phones at the time when they were trying to do some stuff, and try and expand content in the mobile phones. And so it was a 5-minute video of Jin playing golf. And it's a monologue. It's a monologue in Korean essentially, and he's hitting the golf ball, and he can't putt the ball in the hole. The ball doesn't go in the hole, and he has a tantrum on the golf course.
Right.
But I realized when I saw that I said my own name, Kwon Jin-soo,
Yeah.
and it sounded like Kwon Jin-soo.
Yeah.
That was the first time I was like, that's where that comes from.
Yeah. Everyone belovedly calls you Gwachichu Young when we talk about you.
Yeah.
But then we also realize like the editors of the show,
Right.
they don't know like
have
what's
no
a good take, right? Like, and you don't have any say in like, right? Like, hey, that second take was probably the best one to go with. Like,
Yeah. No, I would be in the ADR booth all the time saying, we need to change that line. I need to redo that line,
Yeah.
So for sure, the writers, the editors, for the most part, did not speak any Korean.
So they didn't have like, I'm sure now Hollywood has changed where they want to get closer, even with the writing of a foreign language, to get it closer to.
But do they? Have you seen Avengers when they're in Busan?
Oh, that was bad.
Yeah.
That was really bad.
Yeah.
But like shows like Pachinko though, they did a
get it
great
right.
job, I thought, and those guys were speaking in 3 different languages.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Because even, like in Korea, where if like the role is you're supposed to play like a Busan gangster, but the actor is clearly not from Busan. Their accents are usually off, and everybody else won't catch it, but people from Busan is like, oh, this is
I can hear it.
Right.
Even though I haven't lived in Busan forever, I can hear it when it's not right. So it's a specific thing, the Busan accent.
I mean, do you feel like, I've been here for 5 years now, so I'm kind of like out of touch with what the hell's going on in Hollywood. But I feel like as soon as I left, and maybe it's because I left, there has been an Asian American renaissance, in terms of more people seem like they're getting roles and things are moving. More Asian stories or Asian American stories are being made.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a hot topic. And hopefully it's here to stay, and more people are there to stay. So, do you see that people are trying to take it more seriously? Because there's sometimes like, I remember, was it like Starsky and Hutch, right, where Owen Wilson was trying to speak Korean to this actor who's Chinese, but he plays a Korean, and it was just a disaster of a back and forth. But I feel like now they're trying a little bit better.
Yeah, I think so. Even like if you look at Tokyo, I don't know, did you guys see Tokyo Vice? Was that available here?
No.
Ansel Elgort, he spoke Japanese like so incredible.
Oh, really?
Like,
Okay.
and, I think there is more care. And I think you're right. I think there are probably more opportunities for Asian American actors now than there ever were. And that's a positive. And so we talk a lot about, the challenges of being Asian American, but we ought to talk about the ways that we progressed as well. And that's one of them.
Because before I came here, I did like a little Wikipedia research. That's all I do. I don't get further into it, right? But, I saw that like you started in the early 90s. And so in the early 90s, like what was the environment like? Like who were your like starting class or your class or that group of Asian American entertainers and actors?
Well, back then we could only shoot during the day because they were just getting electricity. And so night shoots were really difficult. Unless it was a full moon, then we were good.
Back in the Kodak days.
Exactly right. But you took stills and like smoke came out of the camera. When I started, there were a handful of us, and I'll say that's not true. There were a lot of us, but there were a handful of us that were able to work.
Right.
And consistently is an overstatement, but at least we were able to do enough work that people could recognize us as actors.
Right.
And so the people who started with me back then are some that you might know. Will Yun Lee, Will Yun Lee, who's on The Good Doctor.
Yeah.
Ron Yuan, who's directing.
Ron, yeah.
We all hung out together. We were all friends. Joel De La Fuente in New York, who was on Man in the High Castle. I know I'm forgetting some people. Ki Kwan, who's now coming back in Everything Everywhere.
From Goonies.
Yeah. So there were those folks, and we had. I know I'm leaving a bunch of people out.
With James Hong, like the older generation as well, and like you actually helped. Were you part of the process of helping him get a star on the Walk of Fame?
Yeah. I helped. I just felt like he deserved one. If anyone deserves one, he does. The guy's got over 700 credits to his name. He's worked over 5 decades, and so, I thought, why isn't he recognized? Why? And I just thought he was a symbol of for all of us, like, and how little recognition we got.
Right.
And so. He told me that he actually, I wrote him and I said, "Are you interested?" And he said, "Yes, I actually tried to do this before and it didn't work." And so I was like, "Really?"
Wow.
So, I got onto Twitter and I just said, "Hey, I want to get James Hong a star. I'm going to start a GoFundMe. I'm going to do the application. Let's fund this." And within days, we got $50,000 to get him a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Now, what people don't know is that it costs $50,000 to get the star.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So you have to get selected. And once you're selected, you have to pay for the actual creation and maintenance of the star.
Wow. Okay.
So it makes it very prohibitive for people who are not studio backed or have big PR machines behind them who are going to pay for all this. And so thankfully, there was enough of a, a groundswell of support that they said yes, and the guy's a star now, and he's so deserving.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
I mean, he was in a bunch of movies I remember in my childhood.
Yeah. Big
kind of in the kind of bad guy roles, but it doesn't matter. Like when I was younger and I see just an Asian person on the screen, even in commercials, I'll be, "Oh, dude, Asian girl."
Well, that's it. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
What I was saying earlier, like just even to be recognized as an Asian actor was saying something. Because it was so difficult to try and make a living just as an actor. You had to have a side hustle. I mean, I was working as an administrative assistant for years.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, and so there was this. It wasn't easy. And then when pilot season came around, my non-Asian friends who were actors were getting 3 or 4 auditions a day. I was lucky if I got 3 auditions a year.
Wow.
And that's not an exaggeration. Yeah. The year I booked Lost, that pilot season, I had 3 auditions.
Oof.
So if you're not batting 333, if you're a baseball fan, then you're not working.
Yep.
And then you're just waiting for the Chinatown episode of your favorite TV series.
Yeah.
Usually,
right. Yeah.
one CSI will go into that town. Right. Like wherever CSI is shot, Miami, New York, there's always one, Chinatown
Exactly.
triad scene.
And the crazy thing about them is all three of us
Yeah.
would be at that audition for the same
Oh yeah.
role.
Oh yeah.
Because
So
it
you're-
wouldn't matter what we looked like or what our background
Yeah.
was. It was just
Yeah.
Asian man.
Yep.
and whoever got it was paid for drinks. Basically.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it worked.
Yeah.
So, we were a small but really tight-knit group. Like we all knew each other. And a lot of times, like me and Will and Ron and Joel, we used to tell each other about auditions because
Yeah.
we used to say, well, if it can't be me, I want it to be you. And
Right.
we wanted to get information because we got so little of it. And so if one of us found out that, they're thinking it's a role that's for a white person, but they're thinking about going Asian, even that kind of information we would spread around.
No.
They were at the Spider-Man audition then when you.
That I don't know. But yeah, the Chinatown episode was always where we'd see the entire community.
Right.
Clyde Kusatsu was around then. Russell Wong was there
Russell
then.
Wong,
He was kind of like the biggest star among us. Jason Scott Lee started around that time. Tamlin Tomita, and of course the whole Joy Luck, sorority was around that time, and they were superstars in our community.
Karate Kid 2.
Mm-hmm.
Tamlin.
Right.
Tamlin.
Yeah.
Russell Wong. He had Vanishing Sun. Or no.
Mm-hmm.
Was it what it was called? It was like a TV series where it was kind of martial artsy type of, good looking Asian dude, I was like, oh, is he gonna be like the Asian American sex symbol of that time? Like sexy dude. And yeah, he did it. And then I didn't see him for a while. And then Romeo Must Die. I was like, oh shit, that's the dude.
Yeah. So, whenever something like that would come up, all of us would be auditioning. Funny story about Romeo Must Die. That's a Romeo and Juliet story, right?
Yeah.
That's meant to be Romeo and Juliet. And at the time, they would not allow Jet Li and Aaliyah to kiss.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's why she gave him a peck on the cheek or something like that, right? Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, brother, American football.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There was some, there's some lines where I'd be like, that's corny, but it's silly. But it was like Anthony Anderson, like he kind of like says something to Jet Li and, he's trash talking him. He goes, you win some and then you dim some, right? And I was like,
Oh, man.
oh my God.
One that still echoes with me is, you call him Dr. Jones.
Oh, yeah.
I still remember that. And I love Ki Kwan. I think he's amazing. And he was so great in those movies. And
Totally.
And he left the business because he couldn't get roles after that. So, look, we can sit here all night and talk about, how tough it is being an Asian actor, blah, blah, blah. But, it's good to recognize when there's progress being made.
Absolutely.
And in stand-up too. Look at how many Asian Americans are in stand-up right now. And like the strides we're making, it's, if you think about when you first started out in stand-up, how many Asian American brothers and sisters were there,
Who was there? It was like you, Bobby Lee.
I mean, when I started, the people that were above me, in terms of like they were doing it and they were touring and stuff with people like Margaret and Henry Cho.
Henry Cho.
Then Bobby, the Ken Jeong, Steve Byrne. PK was doing the Laugh Factory stuff. And there were people like Paul Ogata, who's great. Joe Coy was doing it. But it was very slim,
I remember you telling me this story. Like you used to tour with Bobby Lee, right?
Not but he would ask me like if he's doing shows like in LA, he'd ask me to open for him.
And then he had to tell you to stop, right? Because you were killing. And then he was like,
no, there was one show that he did at UCLA, and he goes, "Hey, can you open for me? It's me, then his white girlfriend at the time, and then him, right? That was the lineup." And then he was like, what can you do in 5 minutes in the back? Just, to just mess with me. And I did really well. On top of that, I'm from UCLA. So it's kind of like, I have some home court advantage, right? I kind of rocked that shit. And I went backstage and I was like, and I just being an ass, I was like, follow that. He's like, you are never gonna open for me. No, but Bobby is the reason I quit my job in consulting. Bobby and PK Bobby mostly, because Bobby went, I mean, I put it in the web series, but where he goes, there's two types of people that make it on TV, really good looking people and mutants. And you, my friend, are a goddamn mutant, right? You're a gold mine, right? And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. And then that day he called his commercial agent. He's like, got me an agent that sent me out on commercials from the beginning.
You told me.
Yeah. And so he's the reason why I am where I am right now.
Well, I mean, but then you only went on auditions for Kim Jong-un or Kim Jong-il
I
for
think
a long time.
I was. It was to a point. It was to a point where I was like. It was to a point where I was like, God damn it! Why didn't the folks at interview call me? Like the Randall. That one. Right? I mean, Randall. Randall's also. Randall was doing stand up when I started too, right? So, but there was I did this YouTube video where I played Kim Jong-il, and it was a parody of when somebody threw a shoe at Bush, and it's me reacting to it, and just laughing. I was being a dumbass, and then I did one with an eHarmony parody where Kim Jong-il's on eHarmony and he finds a girl, and the couple and this music and. Grace Sue was my match, right? And then so that thing, got a decent amount of views. And then the day I knew I was like, okay, I really look like this dude. There was a video game called Homefront, right? And the story is North Korea takes over the world, and a band of guerrilla fighters all over the world are trying to fight back. But the trailer is Kim Jong-un making this speech at the UN saying I'm going to dominate whatever. But they just picked a random good-looking Korean guy to play Kim Jong-il's son. At the time, Kim Jong-il was still alive. And, story-wise, Kim Jong-il dies and Kim Jong-un comes into power.
Okay.
Nobody knew what Kim Jong-un looked like. And then in real life, Kim Jong-il dies before they release the video game. And Kim Jong-un comes out and is like, wow, this guy does not look like. So they rehired or recasted somebody to play Kim Jong-un. So I get the casting call and everyone's in their dictator garb. There's people, when I get to the audition room, there are people, a bunch of fat Asian dudes reading a script. And as soon as I walked in, two people got up and left.
Really?
Yeah, I made them tap out as they're like, oh man.
That market corner, baby.
And then as soon as I walked into the audition, I didn't even say, I was like, hey guys. And they're like, you're perfect. Right. Yeah. And do you mind if we shave your head up to here? I was like, go for it. Yeah, whatever. So
nice.
Yeah.
He went as far as getting gout because
Kim Jong-un has gout.
That's method acting at its best, right there. I have to say though, back then, there were no stand-up comics that had really hit on television.
Right.
Bobby Lee was the first.
Yep.
And I feel like he deserves a lot of love, that guy, for doing what he did on In Living Color. And I think, if I remember at the time, he got a lot of shit for that too.
Mad TV. Yeah.
Mad TV. Yeah. And so, but he's one of the pioneers, and he's been at it. I'm really happy for the success he's had since.
And there was a Korean dude in Living Color, Steve Park.
Cannot forget Steve. It was Steve and Bobby on TV. Yeah.
Steve was also on Friends too, as a recurring character.
That's right. And then he had that big letter about his experience on Friends, which was also.
I don't remember that. It was a racial.
Yeah, he talked about his experiences being.
Really?
The only Asian American on that set, and it was not positive. And that's very Googleable. Let's just.
Okay.
But
I think now that you found a great deal of success in the business, I feel like you have a production company, and I feel like instead of just making whatever. Now, if you have more of a power to make stories that you believe are important, right? And you know, like whether it's like you know, like sometimes there's just mindless, like dumb game shows, you know, that can be made. But I feel like now is a time that I only see people like you that are up there going, this is some, you're not going to say it, but I'm like, this is some, you shouldn't make that. You know?
No, I mean, I believe this 100% that there's entertainment should not just be one thing because people's tastes are not just one thing, right? So it's like food, you know, for every night you want to go out and have like, you know, Wagyu beef, there's another night where you're going to want a Big Mac, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's to each their own, but you're absolutely right. If you're in a position where you can create the work that you want, why would you create something you don't like, you know? And so one of the big advantages for all of us actually in our careers is that the older we get, the more we know ourselves, the more we know the things we like. Bobby, with your music, like you probably had pressure to kind of like be more commercial or, you know, do certain things or
I've
change
had that
your
pressure.
sound. Yeah, but you can only do what's really true to you.
Of
and
course,
it's the only way to sustain yourself artistically, especially for the long term, right?
Yeah, I don't know why I agreed to do K-Town Cowboys though. That's like, I don't know what happened there.
But
No, I just felt Danny's eyes, you know, they're just like I couldn't say no to them. He's got like this like power over me.
But I love the fact that you guys said yes. That's the thing. Like one of the things that the three of us have in common at this table, even this podcast itself, like you guys did stuff that other people were not doing. You were not afraid to challenge yourself, and take risks. So many people do not do that.
Yeah.
They do what's safe and then they live lives of quiet desperation, as they say, right? All of us may have tried, and in some cases we failed, but you know, we've learned a lot along the way, and you guys we're still applying those lessons to whatever we're working on.
Absolutely. And I love that we've attempted to do these things like Danny with K-Town Cowboys, and like even bringing on like someone like me that's not an actor, you know, like he wrote a part for me. He wanted me to be a part of it. Like he knew he's trying to keep it as authentic as he knew how to.
Yeah.
Right. Even for me to make a movie, like I felt like, well, I probably shouldn't be doing that, but like, why not? Danny gave me the courage to do it, you know? So I it's kind of like, you know, contagious, right? But like that experience, I would not do it like, I'm so grateful for the fact like that I know that I'm willing to take risks and I can see things through. Like I learn a lot about myself that way. And it feeds like every other decision I make here on out. Like I know I can do, like so many people talk about like what they want to do. So many people have written scripts and that they've been working on, or like living in Hollywood for 9 years. Like I feel like everyone like is writing something and working on something. They say they're going to make this one day. And I can't believe I actually did it, you know, like before them. And it's kind of like, I hope that they can see me, someone that has no right doing it in many senses. And I'm hoping that they're like, oh, Bobby did it. Maybe it's time for me to step up too. Maybe I can do it too. Like, I hope that kind of rubs off as well. But
I mean, personally, I think, you know, when I started like the stand-up thing and, you know, like, you know, just dabbling in the entertainment business, I felt like my generation, there was a very small number of people that didn't just wait for shit to fall in their laps, right? Everyone was just waiting and getting miserable that they don't get opportunities, you know? And there was a very few group of people that were like, fuck it, I'm going to make this and I'm going to, you know, do this. You know, probably lost some money, you know, probably maxed out some credit cards to get shit done. And, you know, ultimately I feel like, you know, obviously it's a huge gamble, but, you know, it takes, for lack of better words, it takes balls.
Potato size balls.
our listeners, we filled it in.
It takes balls.
But it's true. Like we're talking about stand-up comedy. And we're talking about TV and film, and we're also talking about indie music.
Yeah.
I mean, what you were doing as Big Phony and still do, that there was no real pathway for that.
Yeah, there wasn't. Just while you were talking about like who you had like early on, like your comrades and whatnot. Like for me, it was like I feel like I had less of like Asian Americans doing indie music or music just in general. Like, and so I didn't really. So for me, it was like I couldn't see like that. Probably the session players might have been Asian on something. I'd have to look that up. Like watch like Friends and see an Asian guy. Like it was very different for me. It was like there weren't a lot of like front men or front women like doing music. Like back then, I think the first person was Suzy Suh.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I was just like amazed. Like I was so inspired by her. She was the first person that I knew, like at least around my age, that was doing something that I didn't know was possible or was even allowed to. You know, she got signed to Sony.
Right.
And then, so I was just like, you know what? Like, I needed, it took me a longer time to actually do something about it. Like I was 25 when I put out my first album. And at the time, I didn't know anyone else doing something like that. So, but I needed that courage. And it was seeing someone like Suzy do her music and being inspired. And she actually, we did a show together. One of my first shows was in New York with her. And she was just like, and then I got to know her. And then she took me on like a short tour one time. And we did a couple shows together. And that early on, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like this was a person that I only had seen through like, like magazines or something like that. But like to have that access was like meant the world to me, you know. And then I would start meeting other musicians like Far East Movement at the time, like they were just getting started out, you know. And then there was like some other people like Priscilla Ahn, and I was like, everyone was kind of drawn together, even though we were very different in style. Like we were very like, FM, they're like, you know, hip hop, but we're doing shows together. We're like making shows to do just for like, because we didn't know how to get booked at venues. Like we didn't like, so we were making our own shows.
Go was around then too, right?
Yeah, Go too. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was the independent music scene was the scene that I actually grew up with and I really liked. And so I'm sure you were influenced by it as well. But the fact that there were no Asian American artists said a lot. But how do you become indie? Like that's one step even more indie than indie, right? You know, and that's a tough road to hoe. Yeah.
It's you know, like I'm glad I was part of it, but part of me is also like, man, did I start too early? Because the door started to open. But I'm glad I was like, in some way, probably one of the people that opened doors for a lot of people.
That's exactly it. And for all three of us here, I think like I get told that a lot, and I think it's true. Even if we don't smash open the doors. Yeah, we're the people that are putting pressure on that door so that one day it flings open, right? Yeah. And then everyone else goes through, and that's okay. But we can't help the times we were born in, right? Yeah. Just like James Hong can't, right? You know? And just like every other Asian actor who we can't even name now, who are exceedingly talented, but never got a chance.
I mean, I used to have a bit back in the days about like I wish there were more Asian basketball players in the NBA. So I can say that Jeremy Lin sucks without looking like a sellout. You know what I mean? I love the guy. I love his story. What I'm saying is that like I want, you know, Steph Curry, LeBron level greatness from an Asian person. Yeah. You know, so like I want to say stuff like that. But even with entertainment or comedy, music, you know, if there's like only one or two, you know, like I mean, he's repping, but like.
Hey, wait, Jeremy Lin does not suck, for the record. He's an amazing dude and like during Linsanity, that was the time I was most ever engaged in basketball. He does not suck, but I totally get what you mean. Yeah. Like you don't want that one person to have the burden of representing all of us. Right. It's not right.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I'm not saying that Jeremy is a shitty basketball player. I'm not saying that, you know what I mean? Like, then if I say this and some people will be like, well, can you beat him in one-on-one? I was like, that's stupid. Of course not, you know? But my point is that like, I wish there were more representation. When it comes to like comedians, Ali might not be your cup of tea, but then Jimmy might be,
Right.
or Ronnie might be, or Ken might be, or Bobby might be, right? And so if there's way more, then they don't have to represent as the only or one of the few. You know what I mean?
There was a great article in the New York Times about the ability to be mediocre, right? And the idea that some of us can be mediocre, and it's not, a referendum on all of us. It doesn't mean that all of us are mediocre. We are going to have fantastic actors and not very good actors.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic comedians and not good ones. Same with music. And that goes back to what we were saying about earlier, is that there should be something for everybody.
Right.
And it's okay to not like someone or be a fan of them because of the quality of their work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's how I make peace with my music, actually. Like, I don't have like a huge following, but I do have a following, and that's enough for me.
Well, I'm a member of that following.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan, as you know.
I'm on the fence.
Oh, by the way, like, the song you played the other night, maybe today, I got a few comments about that song saying, I haven't heard that one.
Oh yeah, that's not released. Or
what is it called, right? And so so there are people who follow me who know your catalog well enough to know that that's a new song.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to. That's one I've been working on, because there's a verse in Korean. Also, so I'm not sure. It's gonna be one of those like testing. I'm gonna test it out, see if like people will accept me.
Though you might be Kwachitu too.
Well, if Danny can do stand up in Korean, you can sing in Korean. I've also heard Jin Sushi a lot. Like,
Jin sushi.
Yeah. But I think that's more of an American thing, because it sounds like Jin sushi, the food.
Oh yeah. I don't know if I told you this, but I used to play music with a guy named Jinsu, and he played on my Kicking Punching Bags album. He's like a amazing guitarist. The slide guitar, he learned it just for me.
Wow.
And then, but he used to be in Macy Gray's band, and is a co-writer for I Try. So he was like, when I actually met him, I was like, it is really cool actually knowing this guy and playing music with him. But he was saying like his college roommate is one of the writers of Lost, and his name is Chinsu. So he was always like, I think they wrote, they gave your name.
I wonder who the writer was. Oh, I want to find out. Huh.
Good old Jinzu.
Yeah.
I remember. Cool guy.
Yeah.
Kind of has the Linus from Linus Barbecue feel vibe.
Oh,
right. Kind of square, blocky.
Oh, that.
It's good to see Linus the other night too. Another person who's doing it, right? Who's taking chances and
totally.
making markets. I think, I just applaud that spirit, because it ain't easy. There's no pathway. There was no pathway for us as there is now. Not to say that there's an established route, but even less of one back then.
And ultimately, even with like podcasting in Korea or stand up in Korea, and Bobby and I were talking before we saw you up here, was like not just in Korea but all over the world. Like when it comes to something new, people are very hesitant, and it takes people to kind of basically take it in the chin until it starts becoming commercially viable, and that's when everyone starts jumping in.
Yeah.
And the people that started it might not get to reap the rewards commercially or whatever of that wave right behind them, right? And I personally, especially with the stand-up scene in Korea, am not really like looking for like commercial success for me personally. I just want the scene to get big so that everyone following me could make this something, so I can be like, hey, I did that. No, I can go back, fuck around, and come back every now and again tell a new joke and be like, Danny Hyung still got it, and that's what I feel like even with the podcasting business is that, the thing that Bobby and I hear with the podcasts have been in Korea for a while, but it wasn't commercially successful, and that's why people stray away from it. I mean, similarly with the YouTube business in Korea, first it was a bunch of YouTubers maybe like 6-7 years ago, and so not Hollywood but like Korean entertainment, like quote unquote A-listers and the 소속사s and 방송국s, they were like, this is just internet shit, and I'm sure Hollywood felt that too, to a certain degree. But then they started realizing that these kids are making a shit ton of money, and that's when everyone's like, oh, we are all going to jump. Celebrities have their own, look at my daily vlog, and then and they're just doing that so that they can also jump on that extra money train.
I think our curse is like being committed to the art form. Yeah, like even with podcasting, with music, with stand up, like. And maybe we haven't had commercial success, but like we end up jumping into it first. Like even with the with the K-Town Cowboys, the web series, there was no web series culture back then, but we were like,
and it was like 5 years ahead of your time.
And it was me just getting drunk with DPD, the director, and we were at pizza and beer. So I had some bar in like mid Wilshire, and he goes, "Hey man, how come we have a lot of stories about us hanging out in K-Town that's kind of funny, just a bunch of knuckleheads, kind of messing around, and I don't think nobody will ever write that. We should do it." And I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, why not?" And that's what happened. That's what really happened. We none of us had any experience in any, pre-production, production. And we said, all right, homies with some 5Ds, come on through, Home Depot lights, let's get it. And that's what came about. I think personally that type of ignorance was fun. And maybe that showed more of the spirit of what we wanted to do. But once it starts getting more like commercial and we think about like money, like, oh shit, we got $1 million that we need to spend properly. Like I'm sure that kind of stress is very difficult, and it takes somebody that's more seasoned to deal with commercial versus art, so to speak, So how did you, now that you are also in the behind the camera 역할 position.
I look breaking out the Korean.
Yeah.
I don't know the English.
Position. Like how was it trying to figure out that line? You know what I mean? Where some are kind of studio notes that you go, okay, this is a business decision, and some of it is more like an art decision.
I'm still trying to figure it out because there's always the artistic core of the thing that the story you want to tell, right? And then there's the vagaries of marketing and market research, focus groups, and all that kind of stuff that to the artists are kind of anathema, right? The last thing you want to be thinking about, right? But you need to please those who are financing you, and you need to take their notes, and so it's that dance you do project to project, and you choose the hills you want to die on, and then you have to let go of some of the things that aren't as important because you're not going to win every battle, right? And not until you get to a certain point in your career where you can call all the shots, and that's reserved for a very select few. So I face all the time the challenge of, is this show before its time? Will there be an audience for this show, especially if it's Asian themed or people of color themed? And I'll say that when I started my company, it was before the emphasis on diversity.
That's right.
And it was, I think I started in 2013, 2014, and it wasn't until a few years ago that it really blossomed in a new way. And so there are many shows of mine that died on the vine because they were too early, and even The Good Doctor, for instance, got passed on in the development season, the first development season it went through. And most shows die once they get passed on. But I felt so strongly about it that I paid for the rights again and then redid it a second time. That show, I mean, there's no question that every show, every piece of art is about timing, right? Like how many writers? Emily Dickinson never sold a piece of poetry while she was alive, and Van Gogh was broke and penniless when he died. So, you know, it's true of all of our genres, right? And we've just got to try and find that sweet spot between telling the stories that we want to tell and making sure that they're right for the market, whatever that means, you know, because here's the other thing. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
If people knew for sure, everyone would be doing it.
Yep.
Nobody knows. And so everyone's guessing and taking educated guesses, and the people with the most money have the most say.
Right. Well, I need to buddy up with some rich people.
Right. Is, like the fact that you put stuff out into the world, like K-Town Cowboys and your film, you guys should not regret that for a second, because I really thoroughly enjoyed them, and I'm not just saying that. And I will say, if nothing else, Danny, that K-Town Cowboys web series and that film is going to be a chronicle of K-Town in the 90s and early 2000s that would not exist in any other way. Yeah. And so if people want to know what that
chills.
If people want to know what that life was like, they're going to go there because it was represented nowhere else.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you why it was all worth it for me. And it's like we're all in. So
I like this
Tamlin was on The Good Doctor, right? And I remember I have you to thank for this, by the way. So when I had my LA premiere at the LA Asian Film Festival with my movie, I remember she came to opening night, but the projector was all broken, and so it started late. So she ended up not coming to the premiere. And then you couldn't come the first night, so you actually came like on a encore screening or something like that. And you brought Tamlin with, like, Tamlin Tomita was my childhood crush because of like, I super get nervous to this day when I see her. Like, but I remember after the show, you guys came up to me. She came up afterwards to me, and she said, "You made me cry." And she grabbed my head and smacked me on the lips. And I nearly like passed out. Like And then at that moment, I was like,
"Gotta hide your sail too."
This was, and it was. I was like, all right. If anything, this is all worth it just for that. So I have you to thank for bringing her that night. And like moments like that, like I can always like. I don't know if my wife knows about that, but she doesn't watch the podcast.
She don't speak English.
Your movie was before its time too, and I hate this criticism that I hear all the time from executives. But where's the audience? Who's the audience for this?
Right.
You know, and I feel like if the work is strong enough, it will find an audience, right? And it will create an audience. It will actually change perception. We have to stop thinking so much about following perception, and actually creating perception. And obviously, that's a fine line and a fine balance, because, you know, there are subjects that aren't going to find an audience. But for what you were doing about, you know, your movie was a referendum on being American. Yeah. What that meant. Yeah. You know, and now I feel like that's much more relevant than it was at that time.
Actually, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, and I think we saw it and we recognized it because we do ask that question of ourselves. Yeah. In a way that maybe some others have not until recently.
Yeah, I mean, now that I live here and I've been here for like 5 years, I'm really in how do you say, identity purgatory, where I'm like, am I really? I mean, legally, by birth, by my mother tongue, I'm American, but I don't feel that way. But I don't feel that way here. And I feel like a bunch of Kyopos, especially the ones that I talk to here, are kind of in that kind of, you know, identity crisis of what to, you know. But the other part is it necessary for you to be like, you know what, I identify as American, or identify as Korean? Is that really necessary? Can it be hybrid? So it's a very interesting, thought process.
Depends on the day, right? Depends on your mood. Some days you
Right.
feel like I have the benefits of both cultures,
Right.
and I'm so lucky. And then other days you feel like I'm neither this nor that,
Yeah.
And a friend of mine wrote her thesis on this very topic, and it was, and her thesis statement was that Asian Americans occupy the space between the yin and the yang,
Ah. Yeah.
and I think that always stuck with me because it feels like that a lot of the time. And we can feel, and Chang Rui Lee talks about it all the time. He talks about this feeling of disconnection that we have from American culture, and the disconnection that we have with the Korean culture, because we'll never be fully accepted in either. But but again, like now more than ever, I feel like it's an asset, and I think that as the world becomes more globalized, the fact that we're able to recognize the benefits of two different cultures will help us. So we got to keep looking that way.
It actually, the first 2 years of my marriage was saved by me just pretending I didn't know what she was yelling at me about. and then after a couple of years, she's like, you know what I'm saying. I'm dumbing it down for you, so you know what I'm saying. So,
She yells at you like she's yelling at a kid.
yeah, she does. Like,
Mehmet!
Well, I think that's why I could understand a lot of your comedy, because you're Gyopo and your Korean level is more similar to mine. The vocabulary you use in some instances was very similar to mine. But I couldn't say that about the Koreans,
Right.
So it was harder for me to follow their comedy.
Right.
Actually.
Right. I mean, most Korean Americans that see my Korean set, they'd be like, I understand you the most, and even though you're saying like you might conceptually say some wild ass shit, but like it's because my vocabulary is not that vast in Korean.
yeah,
so
and you end every bit with motherfucker. It's like throwing a bunch of like, oh.
dumb it down. Yeah.
That's true. I wouldn't call it like you cover like porn, you cover masturbation, you cover anal sex, and like there's a lot of like swearing in there. So it's very for the people. It's for the masses.
For the I mean, I don't understand why executives don't want to put me on TV. I totally don't understand why,
Funny.
I brought one day. I came out with the producer, one of the producers of SNL in Korea, and he was like, "Yeah, we can't put this on TV." And he was just like,
No, because
"There's got to be something."
Because before we met, before he came to the show, like at Rush, I met him there, and it's a thing I get from a lot of people in Korean TV. They go, "Oh, 나 standing 알아." As first of all, it's not standing, but okay. 나 standing 봤어. 넷플릭스 보고, 이거 한국에서 할 수 있어, right? And then I go like put it on TV. I was like, wait, time on. You really got to know what stand up is. It's not just standing up and making people laugh. There's a formula to it, really, to be honest. There's a technique to it. 나 알아. 한국 예전에도 했어. They did that. Plenty of people said that they did stand up back in the days, right? And I go, okay, come to the show. I'll show you what it's supposed to be like. Not necessarily my topics, but the flow of it, like the rhythm of it. That's what I'm trying to show. But most people are just going to be like, wow, he's talking about the president. He has jokes about people in wheelchairs. Like it's just they think kind of like clickbait news articles, like the titles. You know what I mean? Oh, that's too strong.
But that's what I was telling you that I was really impressed by, like your ability to manipulate time on stage and take time when you needed time, and those pauses are what allows you to ramp up into a joke and then take a break and transition to something else, and things like callbacks that you were doing that I'm sure they don't know that's a skill, that's a technique, you know? So that stuff all needs to get taught.
Yeah. But some people, Korea is a land of hagwons, right? And a few people have been like, 형, 우리 스탠딩 코미디 학원 차리면 어떨까요? Go fuck yourself. I'm not.
But here's
No, thanks.
here's the other thing I'll say is that like, but what you're doing is an American style of stand-up comedy, and who's to say there won't be a Korean style
Absolutely.
of stand-up comedy?
Absolutely.
And like,
Very
and
true.
so we should not be so arrogant as to say this is the way you have to do it.
Right.
But if just look at dramas and music, they found
Yeah.
their own brand
Right.
of something, and I presume that's what's going to happen with comedy.
I mean, even with K-pop, that's how it started. Like people were comparing it to like New Kids on the Block,
Right.
like back in the 90s, right?
Right.
And it's like, oh, this is just they're copying, but they ran with it and turned it into something completely different.
Right.
And look at it now; it's like it's huge, right? I'm sure it's the same. I don't watch that many K dramas, but it's definitely has Korean dramas are very, very different from American dramas.
Sure.
Right? So
Well, even look at the format of them. If 5 years ago, if you would tell someone you're going to watch a show, it's 20 something episodes,
Yeah.
and then it's done.
Yeah, that's
people are
it.
like, "What are you talking about?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
watching
true.
that."
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's very accepted.
yeah, The Good Doctor here was only 16 episodes, right?
Yeah. It was. It's
Like,
like one season run, right? Of like,
yeah.
and that type of what do you call it? Finality is it's Korea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to like, there was a show when I was a kid that was on for like decades. It was like a continuous drama
Mhm.
about a village, like a farm village called Chononilgi. That shit was on every day, or not every day, but it was on for like years. No breaks, no season 1, 2. It was just, and they grew old with the people, right?
That was a soap opera. And
Right,
by
right,
the way,
right.
like that's Coronation Street in England and
Yeah.
Neighbors in
Oh, yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
They have those things.
Yeah.
And through most of the world, like
Yeah.
entertainment formatting is more like Korea than it
Yeah.
is America
Yeah.
because they can't afford to kind of continue
Right.
shows in that same format. So, it's about the world getting more globalized.
Yeah.
Americans saying there's a world outside of
Mm-hmm.
the 50 states that has great entertainment.
Yeah. And, it's, I mean, still, let's, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I feel like Hollywood is still kind of the MBA when it comes to the entertainment business, right? And then other countries like Korea and just all over the world, they're catching up. But it seems like majority are trying to do it in Hollywood. With the exception of some people who are like, I'm not gonna do this nonsense. Like Chow Yun-fat, he's like, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm a legend in Hong Kong, motherfucker. Like I don't need to make Bulletproof Monk 2 stupid. You know what I mean? So that type of even with Hollywood now, I mean, with like Korean cinema, like they're slowly getting that kind of the look from Hollywood, whether it's Squid Game, Parasite.
Yeah, I mean, Korea is like the number 6 market in the film industry now.
Yeah.
Like it's big, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's huge for such a small country.
Well,
right?
this whole country's the size of Pennsylvania.
Right.
It's
That's
crazy.
crazy to me.
Yeah.
When I look at it that way. And
Yeah.
that's why I grew up in Pennsylvania. Think about what gets produced out of a state,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a whole country.
Well,
It's amazing.
us 3 need to go have dinner.
Oh yeah,
Are we done already?
I'm hungry, man.
Jesus, time flew by.
it did fly. We're at the hour mark.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I thought we were going to get like racy and stuff. And then you guys were very, tame
Pretty
and
tame
serious.
today.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I know that you are, you have to be careful. We don't need to be careful because
Yeah.
we got nothing to lose. But you are somebody that I don't want to get, like people to say anything negative about. So we want to be steer clear away from like.
I just don't want to
Racy
edit.
shit.
I don't want to edit the like.
That's
I gotta edit the show. so-
Because I say some because every now and again like there's a filter in my head.
Yeah.
Really, there is a filter in my head. Just people don't know that there is a filter. But
So like last week we started the show, and then within 5 minutes he said something like, "I knew I had to edit out." I was like, "We're starting over.
Forget it.
Come on."
But I knew he was gonna start it over. So that's why I just went fucking. I just threw something that
I love those moments though.
But he
Like,
laughed.
I can laugh about those. Like I like the back. Like stand-up comedy, as much as I love like the specials and all that, I love when comedians get together and talk on podcasts and they tell stories about like backstage or on the road. Those things actually are more like appealing to me. Than the actual stand-up specials.
I like that too. And I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but what I really do like about long form interviews is it's harder for a guest to like put on an image, you know?
Yeah.
Harder for the host to put on an image too, because they're talking about themselves like nonstop. And a lot of times I feel like they're oversharing. I'm like, I don't need to know this about you. But
how big are your balls now?
But
if I drained it, it'd fill this.
oh my God. All right.
Okay.
But I was telling Danny before the show, like I haven't been this relaxed about doing some kind of a public interview in a really long time. And it's because
awesome.
It's probably because I'm still hungover from the weekend.
Oh yeah.
But,
we went hard, ladies and gentlemen. We went hard.
It was so much fun though.
Whoever says that the sounds of birds chirping in the morning is beautiful don't know shit.
it's been a long time since I popped out of a bar and I was like, oh my God, it's bright out here. That was one for the ages. And everyone always tells me, you're always so buttoned up. Do you ever drink? Do you go out? And I was like, well, if you were here this weekend, you would know.
You can't leave Seoul without one of those nights. I feel like.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's one of the few 24-hour like cities left, I think, in the world. And you'd think it would be going more that way, but I find it's going less that way. Like more cities have been just shutting down early.
I mean, it's COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Duh.
The numbers are ramping up. By the way, update. I'm getting my balls drained on the second.
And not in the good way.
Yes. I need professional help to get I'm about to pay $1,000 to get my fucking balls drained. But it's next week. Yeah, next week. And so next episode, I might be limping if we have to shoot. Here.
Okay.
Actually, no. Next week, it's a day after we shoot, so we'll be fine. But
okay, so we get to talk about it one more time.
Yes.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
So, question: like, some people were like, "Hey, dude, do you need me to like be there for you? Like be
that's nice
there?" And I was like, like I.
It wasn't me. Like I'm busy that day.
Yeah. But I'm curious. Is like first of all, I've never been in full.
Surgery. This is your
full
first
surgery. Right?
Oh yeah.
But I'm curious because like if it was like something more life threatening, then it might be
great to have.
Yeah. But then ultimately, the procedure I'm getting done is cosmetic surgery.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because it's not life-threatening.
It's not life-threatening. And so it's like getting a giant ass mole removed, right? That's not,
Are there other
cancerous.
things optional? Like while they're down there, that there's like things you could check off, like
bleaching.
In order to do the surgery, they're gonna have to shave me, so it's gonna be a free shave. So before I, really go to sleep, like, get the taint.
Don't forget the taint. You get little manscaping happening during surgery. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's no option of Brazilian waxing it, like getting it pulled out rather than shaved.
I don't think that they. I mean,
why don't you just go get it beforehand then?
You could.
Just like
But why make it that presentable when they're gonna do it for me?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Why spend extra? It's like when you call the cleaners to your house. I don't understand why people clean extra
before they get
you know what I mean? I'm like, no, man. Like, I'm paying for this service. I am going to get all of it.
All right.
I'll pray for you, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It's gonna all work out.
Yeah. Thank you for praying for my balls. Well, to be honest, there's a lot of people that know about my testicles in Korea these days. So it's kind of uncomfortable.
We gotta wrap this up.
It reminds me of
We're
that line
talking
from
about
Breakfast Club. Remember when Bender says, "You ever date a guy with elephantitis?"
Yes. Mine's almost there. Elephantitis.
You'd have to sit in the back seat because his nuts would ride shotgun.
And you thought it wouldn't get racy.
Yeah.
Like we just talked 10 minutes about testicles.
I'm happy to talk about John Hughes movies and,
Yeah.
and Danny's balls.
It's a
I guess.
classic. Some of my friends have said,
Oh, man.
if there's a way to collect the juice, if I can take it home, like
gosh.
an urn.
And do what exactly?
A GoFundMe to for my surgery costs. Personally, I don't need it.
Or you can make a ship in a bottle
Yeah.
with it.
There
Like,
you go.
Put like a little boat in there.
Yeah.
Or make it into a little pendant.
Someone suggested, since I like to drink, how about like picklebacks for everybody?
Oh
my gosh. Oh my goodness. That's terrible. Okay.
That's how you end the podcast, ladies
All right.
and gentlemen.
All right, we're gonna go have dinner, I guess.
Yeah, perfect segue to dinner.
Thanks, guys, for making it to episode 100 with us, and here's to another 100
And
Yeah.
thank you, Daniel,
Thanks for having
for,
us.
Hey, man,
being
cheers
here.
to that.
for coming on.
I'm so glad I could be your 100th guest or
Yeah.
100th episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Bye, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.